Welcome to another stupid windy day in the state of Nebraska. I'm moving myself into the garage here for today's new project. Here is the F350 and I currently have it tarped. I've got the hood, fenders, and the front clip removed. I'm currently working on the axle and the frame and getting close to having it cleaned up to the point where I'm going to start painting my chassis saver on the front frame, as well as I do want to paint a little bit of firewall and kind of get rid of the original white. I'm probably going to go with a different color than the original white. Doors will come off, the back glass will come out. So I really need to start thinking about my painting strategy for all the sheet metal. And so I felt like I had two options. I don't have a paint booth, of course, at my house or at my disposal. There have been some really creative designs that I've seen, very cost effective for putting up a small temporary paint booth in your garage. I didn't know if I wanted to go through that much effort. I'm not looking for a showroom quality paint job. I'm an amateur when it comes to painting. And so my thought was to instead set myself up where I could put my panels on a temporary rack or a movable rack and bring them outside, paint them, and then move them back inside, so I could at least minimize the chance for contaminants and dust. Of course, the cab, I'm going to shoot it right here out in the open. So the top of the cab, the back of the cab, the door jambs, I'm going to shoot it right here in the driveway. So I'm not as particular with that. So here is one of the original fenders, just for reference. When I went to research what was readily available for a paint rack where I could suspend pieces for painting and also have it mobile so I could roll it in and out of my garage, Amazon had some starting at maybe a little over $100, but the complaints were that they just weren't all that sturdy, and if you hang, let's say, a full-size door, there was a lot of droop in that top bar. And so I thought, well, I've got a welder, I'm pretty handy, I'm gonna make my own. So I went to my local hardware store, and these are 10-foot lengths of 3/4 inch black pipe. Black pipe is weldable, and so these are actually outside diameters about 1 inch. And the reason why I went with 3/4 inch and not 1/2 inch, which was just a little bit cheaper, is that when I was in the store, I took one of these pieces of pipe and I put a lot of pressure on the middle and see how much it would bow. And so I'm pretty confident that if I want to hang a hood, maybe even a door, maybe 2 doors on one single piece of pipe, it's not going to bow, or it's not going to bow very much. So my idea originally was to build 3 of these. I'm actually going to build 2 because these are 10-foot lengths and I can just be more efficient with the material. And so I'm going to get set up here with my chop saw, and I've got a design in my head, and I'm going to start cutting pieces and then welding up, and you can follow along with my progress. Okay, I've got my chop saw out, I've got my measuring tape, my face shield. Before I do any cutting, again, the reason why I went with 3/4 inch pipe is because I felt with a 10-foot span, I'd get the least amount of bowing versus 1/2 inch pipe. And anything bigger than that was just overkill. So my original plan was to build 3 racks, one for the hood, one for 2 doors, one for 2 fenders, and miscellaneous parts. But because I have 10-foot lengths already, and I want to minimize the number of cuts that I make, and I've got enough rigidity in one of these pieces of pipe that it's not going to bow if I go with the full 10-foot length, I'm going to make 2 racks, each 10 feet in length, so I can go hood, door, 2 fenders, miscellaneous parts, or some sort of combination that fits. The other thing I need to think about is the vertical clearance that I have through my garage door. I've got just under 7 feet, so I need to keep in mind that my rack total height is going to be somewhere around 6'6". I'm 6'5", so I use that as a good reference. The other idea that I have is to then put some sort of a T on the bottom, very bottom, with 2 wheels. And then on the other side would just be 1 foot, like a 3-legged stool. And so I could pick up the one side and wheel it in if I'm by myself. So I'm going to cut some pipe here, and I'm going to lay this out, and we'll see what it looks like. right, safety first. I decided to cut 2 pieces at 6 feet in length for the vertical on the side that's going to accommodate the T and the 2 wheels. So after cutting off my 6-foot sections, I've got the leftover, which I'm going to use for the bottom of a vertical, which will accommodate wheel on either end. The other opposite side will then be just one straight foot that will just sit on the ground. And so that will be the vertical that I can pick up and wheel across the driveway into my garage if I'm by myself. So this will have a wheel and a wheel on each end of this, which will make them mobile. Okay, now that my cuts are done, I laid out my design on the floor. You can see it a little bit better, what it's gonna look like. The T on the right-hand side here will get turned 90 degrees once this is lifted in the air to give it stability. So this vertical was cut at 6'4", and the other side was cut at 6. And the reason I did that is because I need to take into consideration the radius of the wheels that I put on this T once this is built, so that once it's sitting upright, it's actually going to be horizontal and level across the top. So the next thing I'm going to do is get my welder out and tack these up, and we'll see what I've got. A Hobart 190, which is a 220 volt welder, and I've got 220 right here in the garage, which makes it nice. There's really nothing that I can't weld with this welder, so I want a lot of heat since the pipe is pretty thick. I want to get some good welds because I know I'm going to be carrying a lot of weight on these pieces. Okay, so the first weld is complete, and I'm going to do that on all 4 corners, and then I will finish with my T. Okay, now I've got my frame welded up, and I've got it propped up against my house here so it's standing vertically. I've got my foot piece for the T on the floor, and I just took a framing square to make sure that it was at a perfect 90 degrees, and it's also equidistant and centered. So what I'm going to do is weld this up, and that will be the stabilizer and also the frame for the wheels, if I choose to add wheels in the future. Okay, I'm going to step out here into the breeze so you can get the full view of rack number 1. So it's all welded up, and it turned out exactly as I had intended. So it's 10 feet long and about 6'5" tall. And there's the T stabilizer, which is the 4-foot piece of pipe that I cut off of the 6-foot vertical. So this, I can add wheels on either end if I want to, or if my son is around, he can just help me lift the full rack, including the panels, in and out of the garage. But I'm gonna weld up rack number 2. Okay, stepping outside here to give you the full view of rack number 2. It's all welded, and just for full effect, I took a few parts and just hung them with some wire so you could see how this works. I've got a fender hanging there as well. So I would not hesitate hanging 200 pounds worth of sheet metal for these racks. They're very stout. And so this should give me a lot of flexibility to be able to hang my pieces and wait for the perfect day, carry them outside, shoot my paint. If dust contamination's high, I can carry them back inside, or I can let them hang in the sun. So this is exactly what I needed. So I'm glad this job's done. Now I can focus on getting my panels prepped and getting ready for paint.